Hello, everyone. It's great to be back. I am Phumlani M. Majozi. This is the Phumlani Majozi show, where we give you a conservative perspective on local and global socio-economic affairs. As I said, Gabriel McKean is off this week, so I'm sailing alone. And today I want to talk about social grants, welfare, and I believe welfare. And it's not only me, and many people out there who believe that welfare is destructive for societies. In this country, we have 28 million people. Yes, 28 million people who receive social grants. And that number is expected to rise in the next 12 months. And that is not good. 28 million people. In late 1990s, that number of people who were receiving social grants or government financial assistance was around, I think it was plus minus 5 million. These are the late 1990s. Today, it's 28 million people. And guess what? We only have 7 million people who pay tax in this country. We have only 7 million taxpayers, 7 million taxpayers. Now you have 7 million taxpayers financing 28 million people, financing the livelihoods of 28 million people. That is a catastrophe. That is a disaster, folks. Such must not be celebrated, because the goal and the mission, our national goal, must be to reduce any form of government dependence. Hence, it drives me nuts to see politicians, especially the ANC, going around celebrating that we now have more people who are on social welfare, or who receive social grants. Such must not be celebrated. It's a failure. It corrodes our society. It is destructive. It cannot be afforded in an economy that is not growing at all. We saw the numbers that came out this week when it comes to economic growth. We are really facing serious challenges there. So we cannot go on with welfare. Welfare must be something that is stigmatized. This is what I believe. We must be a nation that stigmatizes welfare. To be on government assistance, right? To be assisted by the government financially when you are an able person, that should be disgraceful. Disgraceful to the community, disgraceful to your friends. You should be shy. You should be ashamed. Should be ashamed of being on social grants or receiving government welfare or government handouts. That must be disgraceful. We must stigmatize welfare. We need to change the culture. It must not be seen as an achievement. It must not be seen as something that that benefits our country. It must be something that is bad, that is terrible, that is stigmatized, and that the long-term goal is to cut it down. Right. Now, politicians always say, we are going to cut it down, we're going to cut it, and then they never do. Right. Just not long time ago, they introduced this 350 social relief grant, they called it. They called it, they said it was going to be temporary. It was never going to be a temporary program. Milton Friedman once said that he once said something along the lines, every government, he basically said there is no temporary government program. It always becomes permanent. So the 350 grant was right from the get-go. It was a permanent program that they were introducing. It was a permanent social grant. It was never temporary. With politicians, never. You don't do that. It was permanent from the get-go, which is again bad for our society, and it makes those who hand out these social grants arrogant. They become in control of other people, so they become disrespectful. They undermine the people who receive social grants. So you lose dignity when you rely on social grant, and that's how we should project it. That's how we should see it as a complete failure, the social grant system. Now, some people say, well, it's done in other countries. They do have a social grant in some certain country. Well, they may have it there, but it doesn't mean it's a good policy. It's a bad policy there. It's a bad policy here. It creates government dependency there. It creates government dependency here, right? So it's negative to say that it's done in other countries. There are many other things that are immoral and that are immoral, that are counterproductive, that are done in other countries. Don't tell us to bring that here and do it again because it's done in other countries. That's not how it works. Because things are done in other countries doesn't mean that we have to do them here. So social grants, it's a terrible thing. Welfare is not a good thing. We must create a culture of of stigmatizing welfare, and setting targets to get rid of it. Now it pains me to see that it hurts me. No, pains me to see politicians continuing with social grants, welfare. You would think that the DA would be any different. The DA is not different as well. The Democratic Alliance, they are saying they will introduce more grants in some programs. They don't offer an idea that social grants are not a good thing for the economy. So all major political parties, they support the social grants, they support government welfare, and that is disappointing to me, because we should be having leaders, at least some leaders, standing up and saying, we cannot go on welfare. We need to have, people must go into jobs. People must go to work. That should be the goal. That's what should be celebrated. That should be the goal, is to get more and more people into work. Some of these grants, of course, they go to kids, but then guess what? The grants that go to children, those grants. Listen, I mean, if you're a parent, you have a child, you should afford to raise your child with the money you earn from your work. That's how it should be. There should be no ways of that the government must be the financier, must finance the livelihood of your child. No, you made the child, you brought the child into this world. You should finance your child. Your child's livelihood must be financed by you, not by the government, not by taxpayers. You should do family planning, and you should be responsible financially for your kids, not the government. So where is that culture? Where is the politician who is bringing back that culture? The culture of responsibility amongst parents, which is what I also spoke about this week. Parents must be responsible for their kids' livelihoods, not the government. So we are continuing with a very bad culture. And this bad culture, by the way, is a decades-old culture in democracies where the government has taken over, not only intervening in families through various rules, but also taking the responsibilities of men and women when it comes to finances in families. The government has taken over all of that. Is that what we want? That's not what we want for our society. Welfare is destructive to the family as well. The reason why you see what contributes to the collapse of the family is welfare. Welfare is really a huge factor in collapsing, families, in creating single moms, and that is terrible, in creating, broken families. That is a serious problem. What's happening right now is that men are not taking responsibility as it used to be. As a man who can just make a child, of course, they are going to receive the social grant. Why bother? Why plan? You can just make a baby. So there is that lack of responsibility, and welfare perpetuates that, right? And that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. Women now, even they themselves, Who cares? They can just marry the government instead of marrying the guy, instead of choosing carefully who is the most responsible guy. Where they should be married to or commit to or have a family with, right? In other words, everyone, whether it's a male or female, we've just become reckless, careless citizens. We don't care, citizens. We don't care. The government is going to finance it anyway. So welfare has been destructive in that way. And we can't go on like that, folks. We cannot go on like that. Welfare has destroyed families. It's been a contributor to family destruction. It suppresses the economy. It creates government dependency. It's not something that should be celebrated at all. It's not something that we should celebrate. It's something that we must reject. Reject and aim to reverse and aim to remove in our society. We must create a strong market where people get jobs, where the government plays a role in educating and upskilling people, in pushing for a strong culture of entrepreneurship, in investing in entrepreneurship along with the private sector as well. Those are the things we have to push. Lower tax rates, lower regulations, stronger borders, stronger law enforcement. We need to have stronger law and order, So those are the things that we have to push to create wealth, not to continue with redistribution through social grants and all these government handouts. That must not be accepted. It must not be normalized. We need a leader, a political leader who's going to stand up and at least be the voice in politics. Right? We can have voices in the private sector. We can have voices like us and many other people. But also, of course, we'll need more influential people who are bigger, in public, to be the voice against welfare. So we need more. I urge business people, I urge NGO leaders who are well known in the country to speak up against government welfare. We cannot continue being a country that celebrates and somehow perpetuates government dependency. We must never accept that. That's not how we can become a richer, stronger, competitive society in the world. That we can achieve. Anyway, those are just my thoughts in this episode. Remember, I am on phumlanimajosi.com. That's my website. I'm also on X, and my X handle is @phumlani_m_majosi. I'm also on LinkedIn, Phumlani_m_majosi. I'm also on Facebook as well, @phumlani_m_majosi. I'm also on Instagram. Yes, I am on Instagram, @phumlani_m_majosi. You will see me there posting about everything I see, my conferences, as well as everything related to my book, Lessons from Past Heroes, as I attend various events, promoting and speaking about the book. We will chat next week.